It was one of those nights, the kind where the air feels thick, like something's about to happen. The drizzle had turned the road into a slick, glistening stretch of blacktop, and my wipers struggled to keep up. I was tired, my brain running on fumes after a long shift. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe 5 minutes of silence before crashing for the night. Then just as I was about to turn onto my street, the flash of red and blue lit up my rearview mirror. A police cruiser. Here we go. I muttered under my breath as I signaled and pulled over. I wasn't speeding. My taillights were working. My plates were valid. But I already knew what this was about. Driving while black. Classic. My hands instinctively found their place at 10 and 2 on the wheel, fingers steady despite the irritation bubbling under my skin. I watched in my side mirror as the officer stepped out of his vehicle. He was tall, broad-shouldered, maybe early 40s, moving with the kind of confidence that said he owned whatever space he walked into. His boots crunched against the wet pavement as he approached, rain dripping off the brim of his hat. License and registration. No greeting, no pretense, just orders barked out like I was already guilty of something. I kept my voice calm. "Evening, officer. Can I ask why I'm being stopped?" "You're driving suspiciously slow." His tone was sharp, like he expected me to argue. I blinked. Suspiciously slow? It's raining. I was being careful. He leaned in a little closer, squinting at me like he was trying to find an excuse. "Careful, huh? You got something to hide in this car, pal?" That word, pal, not sir, not mister, just a loaded little insult, dripping with condescension. "Officer, I don't have anything to hide. Everything's in order." I moved slowly, deliberately, as I reached for my glove box, making sure he could see both hands the entire time. He snatched my license and registration, barely glancing at them before stomping back to his cruiser. I exhaled, watching him in the mirror. Half of me expected him to call for backup, drag this out into something bigger than it needed to be. Something about this guy just screamed this isn't going to end well. When he returned, his face was tight, like he'd been hoping to find something but came up empty. "Step out of the vehicle." I frowned. "What's the reason, officer? I've done nothing wrong." "Step out." His voice was sharper now, each word sliced clean, leaving no room for argument. I sighed and unbuckled my seatbelt, stepping out into the drizzle. My jacket soaked through almost immediately. This was about to get worse, and I knew it. I just didn't know how much worse. "Still here, but haven't followed yet? Hit that follow button so you don't miss my next videos." I stood there, rain soaking into my jacket, my breath steady even though my pulse was kicking up a notch. Officer Hendricks, yeah, I caught his nameplate, was the type who liked control. The kind who didn't just expect authority, he demanded it. "Turn around, hands where I can see them," he ordered, like I was already a suspect in some crime he hadn't even made up yet. I didn't argue. Arguing never ends well. Instead, I kept my hands in plain sight and turned slightly, just enough to watch him out of the corner of my eye. "Got any weapons, drugs, anything illegal in the vehicle?" "No, officer." He made a low, amused sound. "That's so." Then without waiting, he walked past me and yanked open my driver's side door. "Officer, you don't have the right to search my car without probable cause," I said, my voice firm but controlled. "Yeah." He barely glanced at me, too busy inspecting the inside like he expected a prize to be waiting under the seat. "I can check whatever I damn well please." "Actually, no, you can't," I shot back. That got his attention. He looked at me, eyes narrowing, then smirked. "You sure about that, pal?" "Pal." Again. I clenched my jaw but didn't take the bait. "You step out of the car, I can search for officer safety. And if I think you're acting nervous, well, that's reasonable suspicion." He grinned like he was enjoying the power trip. I shook my head. "That's not how the law works." "Funny," he said, tilting his head. "You some kind of lawyer?" I didn't answer. He chuckled, then walked to the back of my car and tapped the trunk. "Pop it." "Not without a warrant." His smirk faded, just a little. "Look, you want to do this the easy way or the hard way?" I met his gaze, my patience running thin. "The legal way." That was the wrong answer, apparently, because the next thing I knew, he was reaching for his keyring. "Hey!" I stepped forward. That's a violation of my rights. He ignored me, already fumbling with my trunk like it was his personal treasure chest. The latch popped, the trunk opened, and there it was. Sitting neatly in the corner was a sleek gray document case, a simple, unassuming thing. But the second his eyes landed on it, his whole posture changed. His smirk vanished. His fingers twitched. For the first time since this stop began, he actually hesitated. "What's this?" His voice had lost a little of that cocky edge. "Personal property." My answer was clipped, my patience gone. "And you have no right to touch it." But he was already reaching for it. My heartbeat kicked up a notch as he unlatched the case and flipped it open. For a split second, I almost laughed at how eager he looked, like a kid unwrapping a birthday present, convinced he was about to hit the jackpot. Then his expression froze. All the color drained from his face. His eyes scanned the paper inside, locked on the big, bold letters at the top. I didn't even have to see it to know exactly what he was reading. Notice of termination. I leaned against my car, crossing my arms as I watched the gears in his head grind to a slow, painful halt. "Something wrong, Officer Hendricks?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. His hands were shaking now, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. He swallowed hard, eyes darting back and forth over the document, like he was hoping it would suddenly say something different. Finally, he blinked, his mouth opening, closing, then opening again. This can't be real," he muttered under his breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, it's real," I said, pushing off my car and stepping closer. "And it's got your name all over it." His grip tightened on the paper, knuckles white. "You want to keep reading, or should I fill in the blanks for you?" He didn't answer. I sighed, shaking my head. "All right, I'll do the honors. That right there is your official termination notice, signed by the chief of police himself." I paused, letting that sink in. "And as of this morning, guess who the department put in charge of cleaning house?" His gaze snapped up to me, horror creeping into his features. No, you're not." I smiled. "Sorry to disappoint. But yeah, I'm exactly who you think I am." Hendricks stood there, frozen, gripping that piece of paper like it was a live wire. His mouth opened, then snapped shut. His breathing turned shallow, his chest rising and falling in quick, uneven bursts. I'd seen that look before. The moment when someone realizes they've just stepped straight off a cliff and there's nothing below but open air. This is a joke, right?" His voice was rough, shaky. I didn't answer, just tilted my head, watching him work through it, watching him desperately try to figure out how the hell he'd gotten here. He stared at the document again, his eyes darting over every word like they might change if he read them hard enough. His name was there in bold print, right beneath the words, "Notice of Termination," followed by a list of violations long enough to make your head spin: abuse of authority, repeated complaints of misconduct, unauthorized searches, harassment, everything he'd been getting away with for years. And at the bottom, signed in thick, unmistakable ink, James Peterson, Chief of Police. His gaze flicked up to me, wild and searching. No, this can't be real," I finished for him, crossing my arms. "Hate to break it to you, but yeah, it's real. Dead serious, in fact." He swallowed hard, fingers trembling as they clutched the paper. The same hands that had just been yanking open my trunk like it was his right to do whatever the hell he wanted. His arrogance was gone. His swagger, his smirk, that little gleam of amusement in his eyes, all of it had been wiped clean. And damn, it was satisfying. But you're... He struggled, his brain short-circuiting, trying to connect dots that just weren't in his favor. "You're not supposed to..." "What?" I took a step forward, forcing him to meet my eyes. "Not supposed to be your boss? Not supposed to be the one holding you accountable?" I let that hang for a second, then shrugged. "Well, surprise." His lips parted, but nothing came out. He looked down at the paper again, then back up at me, his jaw working like he was trying to come up with something, anything to say. But what was left to say? He had violated my rights. He had escalated a situation that never should have happened. He had thrown his weight around, convinced there wouldn't be consequences. And now, standing in the rain, Holding the proof of his own downfall in his hands, he was out of moves. I leaned against my car, letting the moment stretch. You know what I love about this? I asked casually. The irony. You've probably pulled this stunt 100 times. Stopping people for nothing, treating them like criminals, making them jump through hoops just to prove they don't deserve to be harassed. I shook my head. But tonight, you didn't just stop the wrong person. You stopped the worst person you could have stopped. His jaw clenched. Listen, I didn't know. And that makes it okay? I cut in. That's your excuse? You didn't know who I was, so that justifies what you did? He had no answer for that. He just stood there, rain dripping from his hat, the weight of the situation pressing down on him like 1,000 bricks. Let me ask you something, Officer Hendricks. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. If I wasn't your new boss, would you even be regretting this right now? His throat bobbed as he swallowed. Because I gotta tell you, I continued, it doesn't seem like you're sorry for what you did. Just sorry you got caught. His silence was all the confirmation I needed. I exhaled, shaking my head. Yeah, that's what I thought. The rain kept falling, cold and steady, washing over both of us. He was unraveling now, the panic setting in. He took a step toward me, his voice dropping into something almost pleading. Look, maybe we can figure something out. I arched a brow. Figure something out? I didn't mean anything by it, he said quickly, his words stumbling over each other. It was just a misunderstanding, that's all. I gave a humorless chuckle. A misunderstanding? I repeated. You really want to go with that? He hesitated, then tried again. Come on, man, this job, it's everything to me. I made a mistake, okay? But I can fix it. I can change. I let his words sit there for a moment. Then I sighed. You want to change? I asked. Fine, but you're not doing it in my department? His face crumpled like a paper bag. You can't do this, he whispered. No. I pulled out my phone and dialed. It rang once before a familiar voice picked up. Chief Peterson, came the crisp greeting. It's me, I said, my voice steady. I've got Officer Hendricks here with me. Effective immediately, he's terminated. Notify HR and get the paperwork processed. Hendricks' eyes widened, sheer terror settling in. Wait, wait! I held up a hand to silence him. It's done. He went stiff, his hands trembling at his sides. The rain blurred his expression, but I could still see it. The disbelief, the realization, the helplessness. I stepped forward, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Here's a tip, I said. Next time you put on a uniform, if anyone's ever foolish enough to give you another one, remember what it's supposed to stand for. Protect and serve, not harass and intimidate. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, soaked, defeated, gripping that paper like it might somehow save him. But it wouldn't. Nothing would. Hendricks stood there, completely still, his fingers clenched tight around the termination notice, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Rain streaked down his face, but he didn't even blink. He just stared at the paper in his hands, his breathing uneven, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run a marathon. This was the moment, the exact second he realized he was done. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He swallowed hard, his throat working, before finally forcing out a broken, shaky laugh. This has got to be a mistake, he muttered, shaking his head like he was trying to convince himself more than me. You can't be serious. I didn't answer. Just waited. His grip tightened on the paper. I mean, come on, this is crazy. You're just like that. You're really firing me over this. I exhaled, my patience wearing thin. Hendricks, you're not getting fired over this, I said, waving a hand between us. You're getting fired because you've been a problem for a long time. This question mark. This was just the moment you finally ran out of luck. His jaw twitched. No, listen, you don't understand. This job, it's all I have. I arched a brow. And how many people have you pulled this same stunt on? How many folks didn't have a document in their trunk that made you backpedal? His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. He blinked, his eyes darting to the ground like the answer might be buried in the asphalt. Yeah, I said, shaking my head. That's what I thought. He dragged a hand down his face, rain dripping off his fingertips. Then just like that, the shift happened. That desperation, that bargaining. "Look, man," he said, his voice lower now, softer. "I didn't mean anything by it, all right? It, it was just routine. You know how it is." I stared at him. "Do I?" He hesitated, then nodded quickly. Yeah, you do. I mean, come on, you." He stopped himself, cutting off whatever dumb thing he was about to say. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head again. "Look, I get it, okay? I messed up, but we don't have to do it like this. We can fix this." I laughed, a low, humorless chuckle. "Fix this?" His eyes lit up like maybe he still had a shot. Yeah, I can apologize. I can make it right. We just, we don't have to take it this far." "An apology," I repeated. "That's rich." I took a step closer, watching him shrink slightly. "Tell me, Hendricks, when was the last time you apologized to someone you harassed? When was the last time you second-guessed what you were doing before pulling a stunt like this?" Silence. He ran a hand over his mouth, looking away. "That's what I thought." "Come on, man," he said, his voice dropping to something closer to a plea. "You gotta understand. This job, it's everything. I got bills, a family. You know how hard it is to start over?" I tilted my head. "Do you?" His brow furrowed. "Do you know how hard it is to start over after a cop like you ruined someone's life?" I asked. "Do you know how hard it is to recover from false charges? From losing a job, a home, a reputation, just because some power-tripping officer decided to flex their authority?" His lips parted slightly, but I wasn't done. "You think this is unfair? That it's too much? You want mercy?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Tell me, Hendricks, how many people have begged you for mercy? How many people have asked you to just let them go because it was just a misunderstanding? How many second chances have you handed out?" He had nothing. No words, no excuse. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of it settle between us. Then I sighed and shook my head. "You want to change?" I asked. "Then prove it." I stepped back and nodded toward the document still clenched in his hands. "But not in my department." His face crumpled. His whole body seemed to shrink in on itself. "You can't do this," he whispered, barely audible. I pulled out my phone. "No," I said as I dialed. "What you needed was a wake-up call. Consider this it." The line rang once before Chief Peterson's voice came through. "Peterson." "It's me," I said, my voice even. "Hendricks is standing right in front of me. Effective immediately. He's terminated. Notify HR and push the paperwork through." Hendricks let out a choked sound. Wait, please, don't do this," he stammered. His voice was rising now, cracking at the edges. "Come on, man, please, I'll do whatever you want. Just let me keep my job." I held up a hand to silence him. "It's done." I ended the call. And just like that, it was over. Hendricks stood there, hands trembling, rain blurring the sharp panic in his expression. He looked like a man whose entire world had just collapsed. Because it had. Hendricks just stood there, drenched, shoulders slumped, his hands still gripping the paper like it might somehow rewrite itself if he held on tight enough. The man who, minutes ago, had been full of swagger and control now looked like a ghost. I picked up the gray document case, wiped the water off with my sleeve, and closed my trunk. He didn't move, didn't even blink. "Go ahead," I said, leaning against my car. "Say whatever it is you think will save your job. I could use the laugh." His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. He was scrambling, grasping for anything that might work. "This was just a misunderstanding," he finally stammered. "Okay? I didn't know who you were," I exhaled, shaking my head. "And that makes it okay?" My voice was sharp enough to cut through the rain. "That's what I'm hearing, Hendricks. That as long as the person you're harassing doesn't have power, it doesn't matter?" He blinked rapidly, his mouth working like he wanted to argue. But what could he say? We both knew the truth. "Come on, man," he tried again, his voice barely above a whisper. "You gotta understand, this job, it's all I've got." I studied him for a long moment, rain pattering against the asphalt between us. "No," I said finally. What you had was a badge and a responsibility that came with it, and you abused it. His jaw clenched. Look, I made a mistake, okay? But I can fix it. Just don't do this. Fix it? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Tell me something, Hendricks. How many people have you pulled this exact stunt on? How many people didn't have a document in their trunk that made you back off? How many of them are still dealing with the consequences of your mistake while you went home and slept just fine? He had no answer, just silence. That's what I thought. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. His face twisted like he wanted to argue, but even he knew he had nothing left. You want to change? I asked, tilting my head. Then do it, but not under my command. His face crumpled like a paper bag, and for a second, I thought he might actually start crying. You can't do this, he whispered, barely audible. I held up my phone. I did do this. He let out a choked breath, shaking his head. Please. I ignored him. Pack your things. Turn in your badge and gun by the end of the day. And don't even think about appealing. The complaints against you are well documented. I turned away, done with him. The weight of what had just happened settled in the air between us, thick and heavy. The kind of silence that comes after the storm, when everything is still and waiting. Hendricks didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there in the rain, his career slipping through his fingers, like the water running off his uniform. I looked back once, not out of pity, just to make sure he understood. Here's a tip, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Next time, if anyone's ever dumb enough to give you another badge, remember what it's supposed to stand for. I didn't wait for a response. There was nothing left to say. I got in my car, started the engine, and pulled away. Through the rearview mirror, I caught one last glimpse of him, standing in the same spot, soaked, defeated, staring at the paper in his hands like it had the power to turn back time. But it didn't. Nothing did. As I drove away, I couldn't help but think, how many times had this happened before? How many people had faced the same abuse of power but never had the chance to fight back? This time, justice was served. But how many more stories like this are out there, waiting to be told? If you believe in holding people accountable, in shining a light on the truth, and in making sure stories like this get heard, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more eye-opening content. Your voice matters. Let's keep the conversation going.